If you lower the barriers to creation, it becomes something that's actually fun. And you can get people addicted to creations. And then they would try Rosebud and they would just have such a good experience in the first 5 prompts that they end up spending their time trying to recreate that childhood nostalgic game.
Have you ever wanted to make your own video game, but you didn't have the coding and art skills to do it? Well, what if you could describe your idea and have AI build the game for you? That's what Lisha Li created with Rosebud.ai, a platform that lets anyone vibe code a fully playable video game from scratch. Join us as we explore Lisha's journey through academia, industry, and venture capital to launching Rosebud.ai. And be sure to stay to the end to watch Lisha give us a live demo of Rosebud that'll blow your mind. Let's dive in. Welcome, Lisha, to the Getting to Alpha podcast.
Hi, Amy. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to sit down with you. It's been quite a journey since we first met. Talking Heads was going viral at the time.
Yes. Yep.
And so much has changed since then. So I want to get started by winding it back a little. What did you study in school and why did you decide to choose that?
I came to Berkeley originally for pure math, and that's what I studied in undergrad. And I was like really into the fundamentals of math, logic, just much more of those like ivory tower questions. It was very philosophical in nature. I thought I was going to be a professor. Before coming to Berkeley, I already did some stuff in probability theory. So there was a natural transition for me from the math department to the statistics department, where they also did probability theory. And stats is actually where shared with CS is where they did machine learning at Berkeley. There was a very natural kind of like bridge there, a pretty continuous transition where I was able to apply some of my curiosities within math and to reframe them as a machine learning, a deep learning in particular, problem. And that somehow led me to AI, but I don't think that's a very unusual story for people who ended up in AI.
Awesome. So how did you go from that to founding a company? Take us through that journey a bit and how one thing built on the next.
At the time, I didn't expect that I would be a founder. So in the background, what was happening in deep learning is like you have the results about AlphaGo come out. And that was really impactful to me from like a curiosity direction, because now not only is this something that's like doing interesting supervised tasks, but actually something that was creative, right? So this is Go, a game, an ancient game that is known not just for like an analytical thing. It's just like this very creative task. And so the fact that it was able to beat the world champion by 2016 made me pay a lot more attention. After that, there were some obvious directions where folks who were doing deep learning would join big labs. Certainly considered that, was even interviewing as an intern at the first summer that OpenAI existed. This was like 2016. Before that, I actually got to also intern at some other tech companies, Pinterest and Stitch Fix in particular, as a data scientist. And that also just was introducing me to this whole other thing outside of academia. Didn't understand what tech was about. Then after I interned, I was like, okay, this is actually really exciting to have the cadence of like shipping product, having people use it, having potentially hundreds of millions, billions of people use it. Like it's a kind of exhilarating concept that you can actually build product that touches so many people and then you get to design that experience. And so I think all of those planted in me some seeds of curiosity outside of academia and even outside of research. And so when I graduated in 2017, I had met some VCs and explored pretty quickly with one VC firm, Amplify Partners, because they focused on technical founders. And so it was the right time. And I think they were incredibly early in focusing on technical founders because at the time, this is like really early days AI. I mean, it's not after ChatGPT, everyone now knows that AI is incredibly important and you should be building products with it. I think those early days, there's a lot of like applications that didn't work. And so it was hard to sift through the noise. And so they were looking for somebody who was technical in order to not only evaluate, but also have the network that was interesting to seed founders in. And so that's why I was at Amplify. I spent a year and a half there, really loved it. One of the really interesting things about early stage investing, especially if you're like at the seed and even pre-seed level, is that there is no data on traction. So you bet on people and you bet on their conviction. Like maybe they're fit for a type of product, an area they want to apply to, but oftentimes than not, that ends up pivoting and changing. And so you're really betting on the individual. That was how I just operated as a person, loving to like identify talented people that I want to support. And venture turned out to be this like way to do so if they want to be an entrepreneur.
Why did you leave venture and become a founder?
Sitting on the other side, I knew how hard it was to be a founder. So in some sense, I almost like really tried to resist if I had any urge because I'm like, I need to make sure this is actually a good idea. But basically, it was happening around 2018. It was like some of the research coming out of like the GAN area was becoming really interesting. And at the time, there was no name called generative AI. It was much more maybe fake news. We're just transferring images to images. But in my mind, I saw the potential for making creative tools. And I was always somewhat of a like a artistic dilettante. Like I choreographed dances, I tried to compose music. I wouldn't say I'm a professional in any sense, but I love doing those things. And it's because I like expressing myself creatively. And so finally I saw this tech emerging out of my technical interests that could have profound impact for creators, right? You can really allow people to be creators. You can ramp them up and make them very powerful without a lot of professional tools, and you can give the joy of creation to more people. And so that's really what captured my imagination. I didn't know exactly the shape of the product, but I knew who I was building for. And so I just needed to get my hands dirty and do it. In the beginning, I was trying to seed people to do this. And then I think 6 months into trying to seed other people to do it, I was like, okay, I'm really thinking about this from the point of view of a founder, and I need to do this. So kind of reluctantly, I jumped in because I know it's going to be a long path and it's going to be difficult, and turned out, of course, always longer, more difficult than what we imagined in the beginning.
Exactly. So before we trace that path, I just wanted to read a passage I found from one of your previous interviews. I choose to have very intense vertical experiences. I was very interested in drama and acting when I was younger. I lived in Toronto. I thought, what actually works there? I figured out, how do you get into a movie? How do you get into commercials? It was tinkering with how things work sociologically. I figured out they have to have an agent, so I got myself one. And then I was able to become a unionized actress who got sent out for various things. And that was happening during high school.
Yes, that's why I forgot about that, even when we were talking. Yeah.
So you have this broad embrace of learning, but then you have this drive to synthesize that into something people use. And that drive caused you to take the leap into entrepreneurship. What was your first idea you built? How did it go? What were the shifts and pivots that turned it into a vibe coded gaming platform?
You talked about Talking Heads. That was definitely one of the earliest products. But before trying to build it, I thought that the maybe best way to get value in the early days when the tech was really raw was probably trying to build up the tools to create a virtual celebrity, which sounds crazy, but now I think people have caught on, and this is why there's the whole AI slop debate. The point that I was picking up on at the time was like a lot of celebrities were somewhat manufactured anyways, right? No kind of disrespect on just how the industry works, but there's a lot of control that agents want to have and just big corporations. And so I thought, hey, maybe you can make a tool that allows anyone, maybe if they don't have the appearance to be a celebrity, but they have a story to tell or they're really good at music, they can actually just create this type of virtual kind of avatar and be able to breathe more and more into that world and have enough of a apparatus to build an entire celebrity out of just AI tools. So that was back in December of 2018. That's the idea I pitched. But very quickly, I realized that actually the things that were hard about that idea didn't have much to do with AI. And so this is why I very quickly then pivoted to mobile apps. This is where consumers are both most willing to experiment, but of course they have a very high bar because the attention span is like close to zero. And so this is why you need to make a really delightful experience from AI models. And that's how I ended up with Talking Heads. But before that, there was like 2 other apps, and that's mainly born out of I need to experiment building with this tech. It was such early days. There's no infrastructure that existed. So if a model came out of research, I had to figure out a way to make that deployable on the cloud and actually make an app out of it, come up with this whole design and experience, which to me was just like the dream job because that's what I wanted to think about all day. Like, how do I transfer all this tech coming out of research into something that is delightful to use? And by my third app, Talking Heads, I think I learned enough to be able to not only build something that could go viral, so something that was very easy to use, one, two clicks to magic, but also just how do you go viral? Because there's some other kind of go-to-market tricks there as well. So I had zero marketing spend for that one to get 2 million users in about a week. I already had the app out for about 3 months, and I noticed that there was another company, I think MyHeritage, that was trying to ramp up marketing spend on this feature called My Nostalgia. So they were like puppeting photos of past loved ones. I guess they also saw some of the tech coming out of research and wanted to make an app feature out of it so that people would go to MyHeritage. And I was like, wait, my app can do this. And so on the App Store, when somebody else is putting a lot of marketing spend for a concept, you try to make sure that you have the right images that maybe showcase that you can do similar things. So people click on them. You might change your keywords a little bit to focus on the terms that they've bought ads on. And so we rode on the coattails of that. But then because our app also did a bunch of other things like lip sync to music, it was able to go viral on its own after it borrowed some of that advertising spend from them.
That is so, so smart. I want to put brackets around that and just frame it so we can all understand exactly what this technique is. You basically are riding in the wake of a bigger boat.
Yes, and I think in general you want to be like trend hacking that way, but in particular for the App Store, it was so clear they spent like a lot of money. So clear that they actually sent us a cease and desist. We wrote My Nostalgia, which is something that they claimed was a term that they trademarked. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just say that they're nostalgic photos. Like it's not your tech. Like we actually had this app sit on the App Store months before they had this capability. You should find out where the line is, and apparently there was some line for them. I was surprised, but you must be doing something right if somebody is sending you a cease and desist. So we were completely within legal territory and just made sure that our terms were not infringing on any rights, but described exactly the tech that we were able to deliver.
That is awesome. So talking heads, and was that mostly happening on TikTok?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so TikTok was the main social media viral channel, and then
Yeah.
you did a bunch of keyword hacking in the App Store as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, because there was that viral spend being put on by MyHeritage, and so I just made sure that our descriptions matched what the consumers were looking for. And by the time that Talking Heads did go viral on its own, it was because they were Googling that name. The other thing you had to make sure in the app design that set up the whole ability to go viral once you do this keyword hacking is you have to have the watermark. You have to make sure that when somebody's in your app, they're not like, okay, what do I do? It's like literally a very streamlined tunnel vision experience where they can just click, 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 and then get to that result that they can share. And then hopefully they share on TikTok, which is why people would see the Talking Heads logo and then come back and search for the app. So that's really the viral loop I had to engineer. But in order to get like a start for it, it was realizing that somebody else had spent a lot of money engineering a feature we already had. So I'm like, hey, let's make sure we don't miss out on that.
Love it. Okay, so you get that going, you get the flywheel spinning, and you go viral, get lots of downloads, lots of people playing with it.
Yeah. Then what? Yeah. So this is usually choose your path entrepreneur. So because I spent so much time narrating why I did this, maybe you'll have some understanding of why I actually chose not to expand on the app. So I think what I realized was that this app, which was a very kind of meme and maybe somewhat touching use case of puppeting faces, was still very much like a meme like app. And so there was not an easy way for that to expand to my kind of maybe loftier, but really just realistically, like what I would be passionate about as a founder, idea of building a platform broadly for kind of creatives. And so the only way I thought that could expand is like maybe you make it into more of a photo and video editing tool, but it would still be just like fun to use, but doesn't capture maybe the full extent of where the tech can go. And so I actually just decided that, okay, yes, you can make probably $10 million ARR out of this, but this is not the venture direction I want to go. And so I just decided to continue experimenting, building a bunch of other things while letting that exist as an app. And I think for me, it was the right decision because you just have to solve for as a founder what you will be passionate about and why you're doing this. I expected the tech to be a lot better. I didn't exactly know when all the language model stuff was going to be better. It turned out we had to wait another 2 years. But once that was better, I had a holistic way to build a platform that was ripe for games. And we can obviously talk about that, but just in the intermediate steps, it's just like, how can you do more? How can you bring an Adobe-like experience, but in a very intuitive, magical, easily accessible interface and product? And that's really what I was trying to solve for in that interim.
It really sounds like you went in full on into synthetic media, right? What can you do with synthetic media? Celebrities, photos, videos, games. And you spent time around photos and I guess videos, because you can make videos out of those photos. And there are many companies that make media for games. Like they don't make games, they make media for games. Certainly could have gone in that direction, but you chose to make a vibe coding games platform and went in that direction. What signals led you there?
There were some signals, but really it was like, I think the kernel came from even why I started the company, which is this tech is very powerful and I want to empower the individual. Because like philosophically, what I believed in was like the more creators, the better, right? It's like, if you lower the barriers to creation, it becomes something that's actually fun and you can get people addicted to creation. And not just because it's charitable, it's because like I want a product like that. And if I want it and I'm addicted to do this thing, I should be able to make a product that's so good that many more people are creators. So that was like my fundamental belief. But then I also think that it's like just good for business. Because if you think about it, that's far more of a fundamental shift in how any industry works, especially for gaming, than just building for studios, just empowering studios. Because to be honest, I think that would probably be easier to raise, at least in the early days, money in, because all you have to prove is, well, there's a budget there, some enterprise budget there, and then you can solve a specific problem to apply that budget. But that wasn't the thing that was exciting to me. And I think that's also not the bigger business opportunity as well. If you can build something for creators, then everyone can be an indie dev or anyone can do UGC and everyone would want to because it's addictive. And so I think that's just the positive vision that I believed in. And that's why I was more passionate to build in.
And now you've built it.
Yeah.
That's what Rosebud is.
So basically, Rosebud.ai is a live app that you can just access without downloading on the web. It's pretty mobile friendly as well, though you can imagine just having a bigger screen is always better. And we make changes to the landing page all the time to test, but like right now what you're seeing is you're just dropped into a game that's literally playable. So this is actually a browser-based game that you can navigate around in. And you get randomly dropped in different games. These are actually using Gaussian splats, which is this awesome deep learning method that can generate these environments from just prompting. But some of them don't use Gaussian splats. Like this one is like a 3D, more cozy, pixel-like adventure. You can literally play here. But the most important thing is that we encourage the user to actually mod and change this game. And so we start with these templates because we think that might inspire people to have ideas on what to mod. So here we say replace player with raccoon, but sometimes actually people just want to make something from scratch. So we can try both things. I think what's really cute is, this is one of my favorite templates. It's this voxel. It reminds me of Minecraft. It also has Minecraft controls and I can say add a castle and then you literally just generate and then you get taken to this cloud IDE.
You're saying any game in the system that's uploaded can be modded?
Well, any game that's here that you create can be modded too. And then you can also
mod other people's games?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't even show you the bottom. So here, I'll just show you that this is being modded. So turn it into a horror game and all of a sudden, like it's the same scene, but a lot of it was very smart in making a bunch of changes, like the lighting, the general atmosphere, the music changed. There's so many projects being made we have this like really large Discord and other people have made these projects and obviously they can play it, but then they can also create from, which is a way to remix these games. And say this was a game that I just remixed. And so now I can actually open up the new game that I made and Now this URL is shareable with anyone on the internet, and you can actually go to the footer, and if you share it with somebody else, they could remix your game too. So all of the core building blocks are there of, hey, some people just want to start with something, that they're already inspired by, or some people want to start from scratch. So you can go and start from scratch in the tell us what you want to make template.
What are the genres that are working really well, and how complex are these games?
Like very complex. That's the thing. This is not like a traditional maybe platform, like even Roblox, where you have to build a specific type of look for the game and then you have to make all these choices. So 2D, 3D, you can do all of that. And what's more interesting is what can you not do? People have been making really elaborate like 3D adventure games and also just like first person shooters. They can like make this Portal like clone where the assets are all generated as well.
Are they mostly single player?
No, you can do multiplayer. You can already do multiplayer in a way that adds your own backend. But yeah, you can basically do multiplayer in a way that's actually easy to remix as well. Because as you can imagine, if you have multiplayer and then you remix it, you might have somebody just break how that backend works. And so we've made it remixable. So whenever you have a multiplayer game, you can clone your own version and have it be multiplayer as well. People have made games that they've put on Steam. It's like 3D type of like exploration. This is all procedural. I can let it load.
Yeah, that was my next question is, in terms of playability, this platform plus the Discord is a creative social network, right? It's people are sharing and comparing and saying, hey, I made this, who wants to remix it, et cetera, et cetera. But then this is also a game development platform. And so how many games from Rosebud have ended up on Steam or in the App Store?
There are a few, but the main thing is also we're trying to create a platform on Rosebud. Like the community has matured so much that they're asking for monetization for their own games. They want us to have a Roblox-like model. In the beginning, we didn't want to do that because keep in mind, nobody pays Roblox to make a game, right? So it's already wild that people are paying us. They're paying us to prompt these games into existence because there's no alternative. There's nothing that kind of lets them have this experience of building anything. And so a lot of people start by wanting to build a game that they're nostalgic about. And then from that, they move on to, okay, coming up with their own ideas and doing stuff. And I think that mirrors how people do art in general. It's like first imitation, then innovation. What we're seeing in the community now, it's like this is like our like 17,000 person Discord. They're like sharing games on there. They're telling us that like, hey, we would love to monetize on Rosebud, like maybe add a tip jar, add like a subscription thing. And obviously they won't mind for us to take a cut because this is just like a one-click solution.
That's really interesting. And I really love hearing this whole story, Lisha. Yeah, keep rolling.
Yeah, look at this. This is they're just sharing games they're making all the time and to work in progress. Because making games is not like just doing an AI generated video, right? It's a labor of love, but in a way that's like incredibly addictive. So they're working on these things hours on end, weeks on end, months on end. They balloon into these massive projects and you can just see the way that people talk about it. And like this one, somebody's probably last updated 7 days ago, but there's a long list of comments about the game, having the community help them play test, do all that stuff.
So you've really built a manifestation of remix culture.
Yes, exactly. It feels a little bit like a hybrid modding with open source because not everyone's going to make their like final game remixable, but like in the beginning, they're trying to help each other, right? They're like, hey, I made this like avatar selection system. Like you can remix it. I use it as a component I start from, or I made this template that'll be like nice to add. And they would share that. And so I feel like that's just been very collaborative. And I love seeing it, laughing at this because one of our internal indie devs is Jason. So they've literally made a project that is inspired by him, but probably because they're really thankful how much time he's put into the community.
Who is the community in terms of, are they mostly first-time game devs?
Yes. And they're not even technical. I mean, most of them are not technical. That's why I'm so proud of what we've built.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Okay, so non-technical game devs who just have an idea. Like what drives them to want to start playing here?
I want to answer that question, but I want to show you this. This was like something I'm just so proud of. So I found that somebody did an intro and they're like, hey, Rosebud development has been so motivating that they originally were an Instagram addict and realized that after spending hours a day for the last 2 weeks on Rosebud, they looked at Instagram like once in the last 2 weeks. Like, this is the thing that's everyone's maybe talking hypotheticals. I'm like, no, it is happening right now. People are addicted to creation. It's incredible. So, yeah, like first time game devs for sure. I think what all of our traffic has really been organic and what we've indexed on is a lot of people who have either played something in their childhood they really wanted to try to recreate and it was just impossible, right? They would open up Unity and realize that what, like I can't like I can maybe drop in a character. I can't do anything with that. And even like Roblox might feel too limiting or it's not the audience. And then they would try Rosebud and they would just have such a good experience in the first 5 prompts that not only do they get converted into a paying user, but they end up spending their time trying to recreate that childhood nostalgic game. And then from that experience, they're like, well, I had all these other ideas. It's not surprising at all that people are so creative because, like, when we were children, it's all about make believe, Legos, building all that stuff. And then just the tools get too hard that we don't do it anymore. And so the magic I'm trying to create with Rosebud is, oh, look, these people all remember that. And then they have a good experience trying to build. And then they get brought back into the fold as creators. And so this is why we've been, I think, so successful with that kind of cut of creators. We also just find that like other people find us as well. There's teachers who are just trying to make like lessons and all of a sudden they can make interactive lessons. So I really think that like we've not only discovered present gamers, but also just like, oh, people who want to make creative, fun, engaging, interactive media, all of a sudden they feel empowered that they don't need to be a developer. They just need to start describing what they want to do, and then through this iterative process, get to something that they're really proud to share.
Wow. So this really is emerging as a platform,
Yeah.
a Roblox-like platform. So I definitely need to check back with you in a year.
Yeah, come to the Discord, like just see how people are talking about it. There's a whole intro channel, and it's like the most wholesome thing you can find on Discord, I'm sure, because it's just everyone gushing about their like aspirations and how like they couldn't do it before, and now they're like, I really hope that this is the. And then eventually you see them emerge and as power users on Rosebud. It's super inspiring, and I can't believe that it right now the community really just sustains itself. Like obviously put a lot of heart into it and really reflects what the team believes in, but the community is now just their own thing as well.
So I have a bunch more questions. The one I want to make sure I get your thinking about, Lisha, is fundraising and storytelling, because you've been on both sides of the table and you've steered this company through choppy waters, no
Yeah.
doubt. What have you learned that are just some great suggestions for connecting with investors and sealing the deal?
Two things. Why is storytelling important? It's because it's not just some superficial thing that investors are indexing on. It's also a skill that is important for motivating your team. And so if you treat it as not an exercise just for the investors, but something that helps you develop a point of view that will help galvanize your team, then it becomes a task that you want to do as a founder. So treat it that way. It is true, though, that investors pay attention to different things than what a day-to-day founding team would want to be motivated by. And those differences mainly orient around you have to be very crisp in how you define the risks that you're de-risking, because I think in the day-to-day of a real startup is that there's probably many things you're trying at once, even though there's one goal. And so you can be a lot more kind of messy with divulging, hey, these things are all going at once. But I think what an investor wants to hear is that we're running this one experiment and then in serial we'll do this and then we'll do that. They just want to feel like the money's going to be used in a very sure bet, because in their portfolio of things, they have many different bets going. So they don't want you to be also doing like many different bets. This is not to say to like twist what you're doing. It is true on the day to day, you are testing many different things just to be able to adapt fast. But like you want to make sure that story comes out in a crisp manner of, hey, this is like actually what we're going towards. And that's why we're choosing to de-risk things in this order. It's just like it shows a little bit of a difference of framing of even the same thing that you're sharing with your employees versus investors.
Let me summarize what you said and make sure I got it right. It's investors really want to see you making a series of very smart bets as you head towards success with one clear, bigger bet that you're making,
Yeah.
which is how you think the world is going to be.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
They have a portfolio of bets. They don't want to see that reflected in you saying,
Yeah.
this is my portfolio of bets. I've never heard that before. And it's such an interesting insight.
Yeah. There could be like a lot of no's where people just don't share that view of the world with you, but you just need to find that investor that does. Whereas like with your team, I'm just like a very radically transparent type of like CEO leader where I'm like, look, these are the kind of signals we're getting. Sure, we are making the bets in the series, but one thing that I had to test was like monetization. Is it going to be the players? Is it going to be the creators? And the way that we tested it, even if it's in serial, is that they know that it's like these are the risks with trying to do player first monetization. You can't really build Roblox's distribution without virality. So here's what we have going for us. Like all these creators are addicted. Let's focus on them first. So you can definitely get a lot of nuance and nitty gritty by framing it for your own employees and team. But I think with the investor, you really need the picture to be so simple. And it's not because they're dumb or anything. It's just because like they need this to be legible for how they see risk. So that's why you have to really simplify it down.
It's fundamentally the same vision at different levels of granularity.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.